refresh my browser. Come on.
Whoops. My mic just took a turn.
Oh boy, there we are. Refresh my browser. I heard myself. Great.
Okay.
Great.
Hey, if anyone's listening and lives in Los Angeles,
Oh yeah.
there's going to be an art opening tonight in downtown Culver City at Village Well Books and Coffee from 5 to 9. 2 of my pieces are in the group show. They're my new pieces of artwork. Ed will be there. I'll be there.
They look amazing too. The art looks amazing.
My wife Lori's going to make a special guest star appearance.
You can get coffee while you're there.
Coffee, food, music.
What else could a person want?
Oh, you'll meet two of the people I grew up with in Clifton, New Jersey. Now live out here, but not so close that we see each other. So they're gonna drive down. So you'll meet people that one of them has the same birthday. We lived 4 houses away, and we went to elementary school, junior high, and high school together. And she married my friend, Steven. So you'll meet Judy and Steven as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun if you're in Los Angeles, the Village Well, Books and Media, in beautiful downtown Culver City.
It's not Books and Media. It's something Books and Coffee or thing. It's the Pauline sisters. I was thinking about that the other day because we have friends who are nuns, the Pauline Books and Media. All right, Mr. McClure, would you say a quick prayer for us before we send you off into the green room?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us join in thoughtful prayer today. And just so happens that the daily word for today is on the subject of fun. I don't think I've ever seen a daily word that centered on fun. So they're lightening up back at Unity Village. And so let's pray for fun today, knowing that fun is available to us and it's something we put into life rather than getting out of life. We have the fun gift to bring fun to our work, to our play, to our relationships, to our world, and to this program. And so we're now looking forward to the experience of divine fun. Thank you, God. So it is.
So it is. Hit record on the audio. Mr. McClure, you can mute your mic and your camera, and we will get started with the show. God has told Darrell to order light bulbs. That was a text from his wife. God often speaks to him through his wife. All right. Are we recording?
Yep.
Beautiful.
Welcome to The Funniest Thing.
Yes.
Where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes.
Yes, it does.
I'm Darrell.
I'm Ed.
And we are broadcasting live from beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
Thank goodness.
Ed, wait.
We have a question for the people.
Yes, we do. What is it?
The question is, what are you tuning into? Today's show is called What Are You Tuning Into with Reverend David McClure. It is not the circumstance that matters. It is your state of being that matters. You're not a physical being in a physical universe. You're a vibrational being in a vibrational universe. You are both a transmitter and a receiver of energy. When you think a thought and feel an emotion, you are transmitting vibrations to your surroundings. In essence, what you're tuning into, you're turning into. And our circumstances will reflect this back to you. Faith and gratitude instantly tune us into a higher vibration. On this episode, Darrell and Ed share how we get to choose our vibrational match by the thoughts we choose to tune into. We got a quote from Albert Einstein, as he puts it, everything is energy. And that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It could be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. And during the second segment, the dynamic David McClure, author of The Healing Tapestry, which, by the way, if you're listening to the show or watching it on YouTube, I will have the link for you in the description, tunes us into something good with today's reading, Healing. That is, you'll have a link to, if you want to order the new book by David McClure, The Healing Tapestry. We have our copies right here. And we are very excited to have one of the people who really sent Darrell down this road, which led to him meeting me and me meeting him. And here we are. How do you want to kick this off, Darrell?
Well, we have 3 great breaths. We got some great readings.
Yeah, let's get a little bit of reading so people know why we're singing the song.
Okay. You said you had something that was a good reading to kick it off.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Well, for the kickoff, what was I thinking? Was I thinking this exciting one? Or, well, Meg, you were setting the table. Why don't you read something like the Emily Cady or read the ones you read. You got some Emmett Fox?
Okay.
Yeah, we have some really good readings.
Simple, yeah. So we got...
Darrell, last week, Darrell had the phrase in his head, what did it say? What was the official phrase?
Because I sent a postcard to Kirky.
Yes.
And I drew a picture of myself with antennas on my head, with a kind of a blank face. And on the postcard, it said, "What are you tuning into?" Because I was realizing whatever I start to choose to tune into, and it could be a neighbor talking about politics, which is a hot topic right now in my neighborhood.
Right.
Or it could be a podcast about something positive I'm interested in, or it could be something I'm reading to lift my spirits, or it could just be my general thinking, my thinking in general. Am I thinking with a positive approach, or am I thinking with a fearful approach? And it made me realize that as soon as I start to think in a certain way, I'm actually tuning in to that, you could call it a radio, because it's like a radio station. I'm actually tuning into that frequency, and frequency is another word for vibration. So I'm tuning into that vibration. I realize, wait a minute, if I'm starting to discuss something that's making me feel agitated because it's surrounded in its foundation is something fearful with a neighbor. Even, I'm just saying, just casual conversation. But if at its core it's something fearful, and we're discussing something we don't want, but we're inclined to keep talking about it, not only am I tuning into that frequency, I realize I'm turning into that. I'm embodying that character, like the character that embodies those feelings and thoughts. I'm like, wait a minute. So everything I'm tuning into with my thoughts, I'm turning into.
Yes.
And when I put it that dramatically, it helped me to release, because we all get complacent.
Yep.
And we all like to look at a little, I could handle this YouTube video.
Yeah.
Even though our mind goes, this looks like it's something that's going to set you off.
Yes.
But you go, nah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Right.
Click. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
So we can get complacent. And I'm talking about myself, folks. But when I realize, holy cow, whatever I'm tuning into, meaning choosing to think in a certain way because of something I heard, something I read, something I'm choosing just to go in a train of thought of something fearful or something advantageous. Well, I'm turning into that. I'm becoming that character.
Yes.
So a real simple reading, since all vibration starts with our thinking, and there's ways out of this. I mean, that's the great thing about a practical spiritual way of living, is that it's a practical divine science.
Yes.
Because if we just do things in a way that helps our mind think in a healthier direction, well, then the change is dramatic, and it starts with my feelings. So Emmett Fox calls this a dependable recipe. And this sums it up perfectly. If you have the book Around the Year with Emmett Fox, it's November 14th. When you make a cake, you know that whatever you put into your mixing bowl will appear in the cake itself. And on the other hand, that unless a particular substance does go into the mixing bowl, it cannot appear in the finished article. The thoughts and beliefs that fill our minds ultimately appear in the cake of experience. And to realize this is to save oneself a lot of trouble. No one puts kerosene in the mixing bowl because no one wants it in the cake. For everyone knows that if it does enter the mixing bowl, in the cake it will be. And then I just some notes to myself that I like to put in my little book. That's why we recommend morning readings and jotting things down, because you'll see things that came to you one year and you'll see how your mind has grown the following year, or you'll need to be reminded of what you wrote a year or two ago. So these are just some of my notes to self. Watch my thoughts, fear or love, bad judgment of others. Like, watch for these things. Worry, and then another, lack or more than enough thinking. Another thing I say to myself when I catch myself, going down that road of negative conversation, do you want this, Darrell? Meaning knowing that I'm going to get it.
Right.
If I'm talking negatively, I'm going to invite more of that into my life. Is this what you really want?
Mm-hmm.
And then also another one, and this was inspired by Reverend Ike. There's a talk you can find on YouTube called Take It, It's Yours.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the covenant of God. And he says how, we hear this word a lot. What is a covenant? And he breaks it down simply. He goes, a covenant is a contract. It means I'm going to do this, and you're going to reciprocate with something in kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he says throughout the Bible, the covenants is always the same. And we have a divine contract. And throughout the Bible, it's all these promises. We're going to be protected. We're not going to be for want of anything, as long as we keep our end of the contract, which is basically tuning into God instead of tuning in to the nightmares, my fear, doubt, worry, bringing my mind back, tuning into faith. So the way he would say it is when he catches himself starting to think negatively about any situation. This is Reverend Ike speaking, and I was using it for a while, and I'm glad I'm reading again. You go, that's not in my contract.
Yeah.
Meaning, that's not the service I promised
Yeah,
to provide.
I love that. That's
because
great.
if I'm providing that, well, then I'm not going to get what I agreed to receive from God, because now I'm not doing my end of the contract. So the
Right.
contract, he says, is void, null and void. So in order to help me not dwell on these negative ideas, fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, thoughts, talking negatively, gossiping, whatever it is, the thing he drives home is remember all the perks in your divine contract. And that should help you maintain your thinking as being just fine and joyful.
Yes.
Because if you just basically, our end of the deal is to keep our thoughts in alignment with a humble way of thinking. And I've been thinking about this word a lot. Not like, oh, I'm humble, just hit me with another, give me one more lash. Thank you, sir, may have another. No, humble in the sense of trusting in God to arrange things, like knowing that God is arranging things on my behalf. So that gives me the joy of just taking care of whatever's in front of me to do, because I know by just doing that with a joyful heart, being convinced that as long as I'm doing this with kindness and joy, well, all my needs are going to be met. And that
Yes.
just refuels my joy and gratitude. And what happens? I get evidence of it, just
Yep.
like Einstein said, because my vibration now is very high.
Yes. That's great. That's great.
Do you want a power punched one from the
Sure.
old
Yeah.
school?
Let's hear a bit of Emma Curtis. No, is that? No, it's who
This
is this?
is
Is Emily
H-
Cady. Emily Cady.
H. Emily Cady. I know our guest is very familiar with her. And this is a book, God, a Present Help. Now, these old writers, let me tell you, they really, boom, they give it to you right in the kisser in a good way.
Yes. Well, because it's principle. It's
It's
not.
all principle.
It works, and it really needs to be understood as principle and truth. It's like like chemistry, or you got to learn the formulas and how these things work, and if you apply them, they work. We don't make them up. It's written in your heart, in the universe. It's how the universe operates.
It's what, excuse me. It's what Charles Fillmore meant when he said, there are no miracles. He wasn't saying we shouldn't delight in the surprises that come our way as a result of this way of thinking. But he was basically saying, look, it's just as simple as in arithmetic, 2 + 2 = 4. If you think and have faith in a certain way, well, then you're going to get the corresponding results.
Yes.
So if you have the book, God, a Present Help, and you could find this book on Amazon or at truthunity.net. And it says here, she kicks it off with, they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing, meaning that means you'll never be without. You won't have to be concerned about being taken care of. And that's from Psalms 34:10. The Christ, the Son of God, speaking through Jesus of Nazareth, which means it's in all of us, this Christ, and he was just letting it speak through him. And the example is, the words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me. And that's from John 14:10. In his prayer of thanksgiving to his Father and our Father said, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us. I in them, and thou in me, that they also may be made perfect. And that's John 17:21-23. And if Bible verses, give you a little jump or a little jar, they did for me for a very long time. But we just got to remember, what I came to the conclusion was, these are very positive, psychological, affirmative ideas. They're scientific, and they're just very, very old. Think of them that way. Mm-hmm. It's easy to connect them with all our negative thoughts of our experience.
Once you get the metaphysical meaning of them, then they start to really make sense.
Yeah. So
there's these principles shared through stories and parables.
Yes. Yeah. Just like teachers do today.
Yeah.
Marvelous way, is it not, in which the creature is to be made perfect and known and loved and great simply by letting God's will be done in us and in our circumstances and surroundings. And yet, heretofore, one saying, thy will be done, has been associated in mind only with death and suffering and failure, and with a forced submission to these ungodlike conditions, as though God were the author of them. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. And that's from 1 Corinthians 14:33. Because I used to think that way. I didn't want to add, thy will be done, because anyone who mentioned thy will be done, they were like sealing some sort of catastrophe with a kiss. Like someone die in a car accident. Well, thy will be done. I mean, that's how it was used my whole life.
I get it. Yeah.
Oh, there was a hijacking. It doesn't look good. Well, thy will be done.
Right.
It was never used appropriately. And this is written in the late 1800s. Like, this isn't new stuff. We just need to see it in this healthier perspective. And this is the best part. Oh, how we have, in our ignorance, mistaken and misunderstood God, in consequence of which we are today pygmies, when he wanted to make us giants in love and health and power by manifesting more of himself through us. We would not let him, because we have been afraid to say, have thy way in me, manifest thyself through me as thou wilt. Because it was fearful to say that, because my little brain thought that God's will for me wouldn't be something that I really enjoyed. And it wasn't until Mike Dugan simply put it so simply that it changed my whole way of thinking about it. I was concerned that I wanted to do something that I really enjoyed for a living. And I said to Mike Dugan, he goes, wow, that's great. And I said, yeah, but what if it's God's will for me to be an accountant? And he said, Darrell, do you like working with numbers? No. And he goes, well, don't you think God would rather have someone who loves working with numbers be an accountant?
Yeah.
And I went, holy cow.
Yes. Changing our total understanding of what God is basically what we're always redoing, right? We're always changing and upgrading, up-leveling our understanding that God is so many positive things. There's in Raymond Charles Barker's The Power of Decision, he says, the infinite in its creative process is always exciting. So when we're trying to switch and tune into something new, this is really important. I'm going to read this first. The infinite in its creative process is always exciting. It is your true state. It's your normal state. It's you at your greatest and best. It is you when you are creatively happy. Your greatest hunger is for new ideas. Declare they are there and watch them happen in you. Grasp them and rejoice in them. How often are you, think about that. He's saying grasp them and rejoice in them. So we got to spend time doing that. Then act upon them. Do something different. Say something different. Become a different person. Try different restaurants. Change from your favorite department store. Walk down some new streets in your neighborhood and watch for some interesting things. Be a sidewalk superintendent and watch a new building being built. Marvel at a few things for a change. All this is possible and you can do it. And you can do it at any moment.
Yes.
You just have to convince yourself that it's possible because anything else is really a lie. It is untruth. That's why I love Emma Curtis Hopkins and Emily Kay, these type of writers. There's no in between. The God is the only reality. We get deceived, and we've been deceived, and others around us were deceived by this, believing that it's not true, and believing that fear and struggle and doubt, that those things are real, and they acted out the part, and we're young, we took it in, but we, at any moment, it's a lie. How long we want to linger in it is up to us. The good part is, I got this in Science of Successful Living by Raymond Charles Barker also.
Wait, what's the subtitle? It looks great.
It's called Your Spiritual Formula for a Joyous Life. And this was, what's that guy's name? Greg?
Who's Greg?
Greg, that minister. Was it Greg or was it Joe? No, it was Joe Hooper. Dr. Joe Hooper.
Oh, Dr. Joe.
He recommended this book. I recommend reading The Power of Decision first and then this book. But what you mentally and emotionally release, that means as soon as we stop tuning into it, even if it's coming from within ourselves, sometimes we have to bless it and say, nope, that's not true for me.
Delete.
And just that what you mentally and emotionally release dies out of your world. What you mentally and emotionally embody is born into your world. That means what you're focusing on.
Tuning into.
Not only select what you want in life, but also select those things you no longer want and let them die. They will move out of your experience if you refuse to sustain them with your attention. The old order has to pass away. The old order, that means the old way of thinking, has to pass away to let God create what you want. The clutter of the present has to be streamlined to allow the future to take place. And let me just see. I wrote a couple notes here because the trick I was thinking about this because I was in the water today and my shoulder was bothering me just a little because there was like a lot of tension around my right shoulder. But what I notice is there's this little feeling I'm having, and it's not really stopping me from doing what I love, but then there's a lot of stories about what it's going to mean coming out of my own head, what the future's going to be like, what I'm going to have to do, how long is it going to, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept coming back to the present and going, God is health. These stories are not true about me. Even though they were coming up from my own subconscious, I just kept affirming, they are not true. All is well. This is going to be easier than I think. Whatever, like if I need to take steps, I'll take them. It'll be easy. I talked myself through it. But the trick to tuning into something new is you have to rise to a higher vantage point. Rather than grappling with the questions, memories, and quarrels, in my mind that attempt to pull me back into the old ways of thinking, which equal that way of thinking is my vibratory state. So what I mean by that is my subconscious mind that's embroiled in all this belief that I have problems is also telling me this is the way out of it. Solve this problem, judge this person, figure out who, feel guilty, and then pay this. Like the same mind, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the mind that same mind that created it. The trick is the same mind that created that's generating the illusion of the problems is also telling us what we need to do to get out of it. And none of it works. We have to rise into this God consciousness, which is ever present. And that's why we study it all the time, because I literally get hypnotized by these old beliefs every day. And every day I have to wake back up to what Raymond Charles Barker said. It's not, oh, I'm going to survive these bad situations. It's these bad situations aren't even real. There's things I need to deal with, and the people involved are real. And sure, there's some like facts, but the story about it is not real. The story that I can hang my hat on is that God is good always, and is always guiding me to my solutions, is always guiding me to greater prosperity, is always opening doors for me to shine my light. But in order to get through there, I got to be like Darrell says, practice humility. To admit that my own mind is out of its gourd. It's wrong. It's a lie. The things that I've been thinking instead, because for me, I get tempted to prove these bad feeling lies right and be right about them and be serious, and it's, humility is like, oh, thank God these things that are coming out of my own mind are false, and that God is good, and that the people around me are amazing as well. And by planting these seeds day by day, by doing a morning routine, it starts to get into your subconscious. And the other day I woke up and like the veil of all that stress that was in me was parted just long enough for me to realize, man, I am now, and I've always been surrounded by the most amazing people. And I felt it in my bones in this joyous way. And sure, like the stress, the worries, it all started up again later. But getting these glimpses of reality feeds us so that I can be humble enough to let go and let God do it in my day and just be blown away every time it works out. And lastly, I saw a quote from Abraham Hicks. She said, you are powerful magnets attracting to you that which you seek or ask for or acknowledge or give your attention to. We are magnets that attract what we are giving our attention to. And in David McClure's book, The Healing Tapestry, a memoir of divine guidance,
yes,
he says this: Jesus was a living example of healing and guidance. He demonstrated that a unifying thread joined together all humankind and the many forms life takes into a spiritual reality that is our true identity. So if that's our true identity, the rest of it has to be false. He taught that this thread is accessed through one or both of the dual threads, the heart or the mind. And he says we reach the one thread through a combination of our feeling and thinking. And that's why I keep going back to this subconscious mind. That's where it's generating our conscious mind has to retrain our subconscious mind, give it new ideas and new thoughts, because it's the subconscious mind that generates the feeling. And we need to shift that to start generating new feelings. And it don't make hard work of it, but just do it with a joyful heart. And it works out. You had this picture that kind of demonstrates this, right? Did you want to go over this or not?
Well, now that you held it up, you're going to have to share it with the radio people.
All right. So
it's I
know Bob Proctor shared this with a friend of ours, but I'm sure he didn't invent it, did he?
I don't know, but we'll throw his name out there. It's called the stick figure. And if you Google stick figure Bob Proctor, you'll see what we're talking about. It's basically, if you draw a stick figure where you have a large circle above a smaller circle, and the large circle, I'll just hold this up for the YouTubers, is the head. And you'll see how our thoughts are caused by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think. And thoughts stir emotion. And then emotion we feel it in our body, causes vibration. And it's that vibration that creates our circumstances or leads to the results, because the vibrations causes actions, activity.
Yes.
Activity is actions. And the results now we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Now it starts to become a feedback loop. So if we're always thinking, I don't get any breaks, well, we're going to have the feelings of, I never get any breaks. And what's going to happen? My circumstances are going to prove that, because the universe's job is to match our vibration. And then I'm going to go, look, I don't get any breaks. And it's just, I'm stuck in a loop. So how do we get out of that loop? And the quickest way to get out of the loop is gratitude.
Yeah.
It's so easy and so often overlooked. But as you were talking, it reminded me of another way to get out of the loop, which may sound so simple and absurd and silly. And when I was at the training facility before I met, that introduced me to go check out Unity at Diamond Head, where I met David McClure on a Wednesday for a Course in Miracle workshop. And that's specifically what the suggested orders were after I got out of the training facility, was you're going to go to Wednesday night. They have a Course in Miracles study group. I said, okay, yes, sir, I'll go. But before that, to open my mind, if you really want to start changing your subconscious mind, this was what was recommended. It's going to sound silly, but it's going to start changing your mind. And what it is if you put on your slacks or shirt or slip on your bra, I don't care what it is, we all are in the habit of doing it either right leg, or right side first or left side first. Do it the opposite. If you've been driving a certain way to work, this is a hard one, you're going to take a different way. No, but this is the quickest way. No, that's the only way you've been going. And who cares? You got it. Do you really, Fazaro, do you really want to transform your life for the better? Yes. Okay. Are you willing to do these simple things? Yes. I even will draw with my non-dominant hand. I will write with my non-dominant hand occasionally. And you could feel your brain tingle because it's coming alive, because it's waking up. It's gotten into a rut. And once the subconscious mind gets into a rut, we do things automatically. But as soon as we start changing one thing, and that was the brilliance of these guys, as insignificant as putting my left leg through my slack first, then instead of my right leg, it cracks open all of the subconscious mind.
Yep.
And it allows much more in, and it doesn't prevent new things, improved ideas from coming in. It also enables you to no longer be so rigid in other areas of your life without saying, I'm not going to be rigid, I'm going to try new things. Mm-hmm. You'll find yourself naturally being open and willing to try new things.
Heck yeah. All right, Patreon folks, thank you for contributing to the show. Patreon.com/funniest thing. If you want to contribute, jump on, buy us a cup of coffee every month. It really helps.
And
we do a Tuesday Zoom.
If you're watching on YouTube, all you got to do is hit the subscribe button.
Oh, yeah, like the video as well.
But the subscribe button, by doing that, you automatically help in other people just like you and us discover the funniest thing.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
That easy. Funniest thing, we have a mailbox, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. Got a couple of great postcards from Kirky. I'll read one of them here. He says, good news. We believe that life to each of us is in accordance with our state of consciousness. And that's from Barker and Holmes. What consciousness will you choose?
What are you tuning into?
He's got a quote from Johnny Marfa on the cover. Be the ass, which just means the ass that carried Jesus into
Just
Jerusalem.
being the vessel. Like,
Yeah, be the vessel.
I did have to be the conduit.
Yeah, Elizabeth Washington said, just finished this episode. Love you guys. Thank you so much for continuing to bring so much love and light to the world. You made such a difference in my life, and in turn, all the lives that I touch as well.
This is an incredible name. A queen, the founding father of the United States, and another founding father who's responsible for our dictionary.
Nice. I want to thank Chief Engineer Jeff Comfort each week. He takes us
Right
into the comfort zone. Let's take 3 deep breaths. This is from Marky Mark. It's such a good vibration. It's such a sweet sensation. You have to do that one the way you feel.
Why do you keep burping?
I'm not. Go ahead. That's you. That's you.
It's such a good vibration. It's such a sweet sensation.
It's such a good vibration. It's such a sweet sensation.
Oh, and the name was Elizabeth Washington Webster.
That's right. Coming up next, the dynamic author David McClure. His book, The Healing Tapestry, tunes us into something good with today's reading, also healing. Thank you for listening to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, live from Middle School Studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland. All right.
Is David ready to take over so we could relax?
Are you going to tinkle or are you ready to go?
I better.
All right, let's hit it. We'll find out what time we have.
What?
Let's find out what time Mr. McClure needs to be out of here so we make sure we get him going. Hello, David. Are you there, sir?
Hello, I'm here.
Yes. Flip the old camera on. We'll be right back and we'll kick it off. What time do you have to leave?
2. I can leave whenever, whatever's best for you, but I'm aiming
We have
for
like
2
20
o'clock.
minutes? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
2 o'clock, great. We're going to get this cooking. All right. We're going to let you cook right away. Man, your book is amazing. Once again, everyone watching on YouTube, get David's book. It is called The Healing Tapestry, a memoir of divine guidance. It's a great one. You can just choose. You can just read each chapter and reflect as part of your daily routine or weekly routine, whatever you want to do. But it is packed with wisdom and the kind that really, the type of truth that sets me free anyway, just by reading it. So thank you, David. Let's see here. Maybe since you gotta go, let's see. All right, let's do this, David. Since we have you for like 20 minutes, I'm gonna kick off the second segment. Darrell will be sitting down just momentarily, but we can start. We can start our chat. Is that okay by you?
That's okay by me.
All right. All right, welcome back to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Today's show is called What Are You Tuning Into? With the great Reverend David McClure. David McClure has a new book out, The Healing Tapestry, a memoir of divine guidance. The link is in the description for both the audio and the YouTube. You can buy it at the shop at unity.org. That's where I found a good link to it anyway. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing terrific. I was very inspired by your sharing the first part of this program, and you guys are right on target. It's an honor and delighted to be back with you again.
Oh, man. It is very, very mutual. It's very mutual. Did you have things you wanted to share based on what you heard, or did you want to start talking about your book right away?
Well, the question of the day is, what are you tuning into? And this book is a process of tuning out something and tuning into something. 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma. And that's what I got tuned into. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about this. But all I could tune into was the diagnosis and the doctor saying, well, you maybe have 2 or 3 months to live, David. So get your act together. And I had uh, nothing inspiring to say after that. Just what am I going to do with the 2 to 3 months left in my life? So that stopped my um, healing process. But then last year, Ellen Davenport at Unity Village wrote to me and said, we're doing a writing contest, and would you be interested in writing a book? And I said, yes. And immediately at that moment, I started tuning into all the ideas and thoughts and insights that are contained in this book. This was like a floodgate that opened to me because I was no longer, I had already overcome my cancer. It was already gone, but what wasn't gone was what was inside me that I wanted to say about it all. So that's when the book started to take form and shape.
Wow. That is awesome. So I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing this. Like you went through a condition that would have been very easy to, I guess, succumb to or not. How did the living by these principles help you move through that?
Can I just ask one other thing to add to that?
Yeah,
this
please
is
do.
the thing, reading this book and my thoughts. How difficult was it, or how did you navigate through coming to terms with, hey man, I've been living this way and I've been a reasonably good guy and I've been generous throughout my life. You know, I would be overwhelmed with does this stuff really work? Was this all just a joke? Like, how did you navigate through that? Because you've been a lifelong practitioner and I've known you for many years as a kind, generous person. So how did you shift that? Because that is something that would seem monumental in my mind for myself.
Well, I think all of us have situations in life, in the material world, in the world of our physical body, or the world of our finances, our relationships, where we begin questioning or forgetting who we really are. And we need something to bring us back to the truth of who we came here to be, who we have come to express. And so for me, it was really a matter of saying, okay, this is a situation that I'm confronting, but who does the spirit within me say that I am? And please keep reminding me of who I am as I continue out of this physical limitation that seems to be threatening my very livelihood, and bring me into an awareness of who I and what I truly am. And so I just kept reminding myself of why I was here, how I had functioned through all the years of ministry, and how I had overcome so many obstacles in my life simply by being totally aware of who I am in the light of the truth about myself. So that's basically
That is good, because I read in your book, which helped me a few nights ago, because I don't know, I know this, I'm going to say it. I've known this story, which I'm going to share, and I know this affirmation, and it's a great affirmation, but somehow hearing it from you in the book really made me take it to heart, knowing, because the story is Myrtle Fillmore had a death sentence, not a life sentence, a death sentence when she was diagnosed with tuberculosis at the latter part of the 19th century. And she heard a speaker say, I am a child of God. I do not inherit sickness. And I love that affirmation. And she recovered. But she was also depressed and like, okay, this is it. And in spite of that, this affirmation started to sink in deep. I mean, was this something that you grabbed a hold of? It? I mean, it seems like it would have been in the writing. I mean, can you share a little bit about that too?
Well, of course, she's the co-founder of Unity over 100 years ago. And in thinking about my own spiritual training and thinking about this healing challenge that came up, I started going back in my reading to pick up Mother Myrtle's ideas and thoughts, and if she's a child of God and doesn't inherit sickness, neither do I. And
Yeah.
so and in the book, I symbolize Myrtle as being the feeling side of healing, and it's highly intuitive. And so if something deep down in your heart is saying,
Yeah.
you are bigger than this challenge, you are greater than this, you always have been and you always will. And I bought into that. I've always known that for most of my life. You forget about it once in a while and you struggle with issues, but you come back to, well, I'm who I am because of my inheritance from the divine.
Yes.
And then Papa Charles Fillmore comes along. He's impressed by Myrtle's overcoming, and he wants to know more about it. He wants to know what's going on here. She was about out of my life, and now here she is, sticking around and doing great things. And so he started to study books and lectures and theories, but it was all confusing. He was getting many different ideas, and so he finally said, in this Babel, as he called it, I will go to headquarters. I will go directly. Go, do not pass go, do not collect $200. So he starts getting up at 2 a.m. in the morning and meditating and going directly to the source. And that's where the other Myrtle's the feeling nature, he's the thinking nature, and he gets in touch with this source, this headquarters, which inspired him to write and help co-found the whole unity movement and this whole metaphysical idea. So mind and heart working together, these are the two threads that create the tapestry.
That is great.
And I love your, I think you call it your latest definition of or name for God. You want to share that with everyone?
Let's see.
UFUP, is it?
Yes, the unified field of infinite possible, universal field of infinite possible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just going to read that quote that he said because I mistakenly thought, like Charles Fillmore, I thought you needed a go-between to talk to God. Like I would have to talk to, I mean, it was just what I saw in movies and what I picked up in the ethers growing up. Like I couldn't just talk to God. My prayers, he's probably not going to answer. I need to hire a professional, like a priest. And they got to have the uniform, because I grew up on the East Coast. You weren't a professional, like you weren't a doctor unless you had a lab coat. Police officers had uniforms.
Yes.
And people who worked with God had a uniform and it was black.
Right.
So, but this is what he says. And this is so good when he says, and I quote, and this is in David's book, I said to myself, in this babble, I will go to headquarters. If I am spirit and this God they talk so much about is spirit, we can somehow communicate, or the whole thing is a fraud. I love that. Meaning, if we can't just communicate with God, then the whole thing is a joke. But the great news is we can.
Yeah.
And to answer that question, who are we tuning into? The answer is headquarters.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that term. I love that
Yeah,
term.
we recently got video sent to us from our friend Nancy Norman, who left her body recently.
Yes.
But she made a series of these videos, and it feels like we're getting videos now from headquarters reminding us of the good news, because she's like at this very like manicured seat, and she just looks amazing, and she's just like, remember, and I can feel her presence going, if like I'm here now, and I know it even more now. It's amazing.
She says, remember, and in spite of spoiling the ending, it all works out
Yes.
good.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love this, David. You said in this book, in the chapter about how do you get to Carnegie Hall, you said, it's taken me most of my adult life to finally get it through my thick skull that the one I am currently referring to as the unifying thread, the one I had been raised to affirm as one presence, one power, God the good, omnipotent, has always been with me and has always been there to heal, to guide, to prosper, and support me no matter what. That is great news. Is David frozen? I think David's frozen. Oh, he's back. You're back.
Yeah, I was frozen for a bit there. Sorry.
Your own words just froze you. Who wrote this? This is amazing.
Yes, did I say that?
Yeah, that's what we thought happened. We thought, oh my God, he forgot. He's shocked. He's so impressed by those words. He can't believe that he wrote
He's speechless.
them.
Yeah. Well, going to Carnegie Hall was, but the thread from my aunt going to Carnegie Hall and hearing Emmett Fox and taking down shorthand notes for him and sending them out to his mailing list. And on his mailing list was my mother. And she started freaking out at this amazing message. She said, I got to find a church that teaches this stuff. So she found in Toronto, where I was brought up, this Unity Church of Truth. And she started taking us kids over there to that church. And we realized, later on, I realized that this guy that started the Church of Truth all over the country, the first one being in Spokane in 1913, Dr. Albert Greer, he was connected. Here's the threads right here. He was connected. He was a buddy of Emmett Fox. And so it all turned out that way. And then after a while, Eric Butterworth started giving talks in Carnegie Hall. And one day he calls me and said, would you like to give a talk at Carnegie Hall?
Wow.
And so these threads, they just a whole tapestry opened up for me in those days. Yeah.
That's what's awesome about this, and your book is such a good reminder. And I have to remind myself all the time, and I'm reading Scientific Christian Mental Practices lately, just slowly reading my way through it. It doesn't matter what anything else in the world says. This is principle that God is always good, that all the rest of it is false. And these threads are our heart's desires in ways we could never, when we are that loved and supported, and tuning into the frequency that, even if we don't necessarily know what's going to happen or how, but tuning into the frequency that allows us to stay in the flow with those threads, with less wear and tear, more joy, more appreciation, even in the unknown, is a life changer. And in the way you described moving through your health challenge, I was thinking about that this morning, was these principles allow me to have a framework to say, okay, this thing came up, but I don't have to tell this scare. I don't have either a complete unknown of like, oh my God, I'm in the hands of like, it's just chaotic. Who knows? I know there's a loving presence behind all of it, and it's an opportunity. It really does turn everything into an opportunity.
Well, all of us have these threads if we would just take time to make the connections and go back into it. It's like Darrell talking about walking into Unity in Honolulu on a Wednesday and hearing about the Course in Miracles, and one thing leading to another to right here and right now, where I'm sitting here looking at this guy and realizing that we got this thread thing going. And even for my book, I used his editor,
Wow.
who turned out to be the most amazing individual who helped. I wouldn't be talking about my book without her. So we're all connected and we're all threaded together. It's a tapestry, and it's amazing if we're willing to take the time to make the connections.
Yeah.
And the thing I got to always remind myself, humility means staying out of the scheming business. I don't need to try to make things happen, make anything work out the way I think it must, because every great thing, when I connect the threads and I take note of them, all these great things came out of left field. I was just doing my, putting one foot in front of the other, and the magic happens. And every time I try to make something happen, it just causes stress.
Well, it's like the story in my book about going hunting with my family, and we're going partridge hunting, and I'm looking around for a partridge. I don't find any, and I sit down. I'm tired of hunting. I'm tired of searching, and I'm sitting there with my shotgun in my lap, and all of a sudden a chickadee comes and flies up and lands on the barrel of my gun. And it was a clear message to me: hunting animals and birds is not part of my plan.
Yeah.
But
that's so cool.
If you just sit down and relax, it'll all come to you. It'll all come to you.
That's amazing.
Amen.
Amen to that. Well, we thank you for coming in. We know you got to get moving. Should we tell them the story we heard?
Yeah, we're going to tell you a quick story we heard about you, David. You might recall it.
We could do this. Let's tell him the story. We'll say goodbye to David, something we don't normally do. And then we can give a few closing remarks before we end the show, because we don't need to rush. We can say goodbye to David and then.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, here, David, again, his book is The Healing Tapestry, a memoir of divine guidance. There's a link to order the book in both the description of the YouTube and the podcast. So thank you again, David. So early in David McClure's career, he took great pride in writing long, detailed sermons. These talks would go on for 45 minutes, and he was very proud of himself. One day, his mentor sat in on one of these lengthy talks. Afterward, David went fishing for compliments.
So what do you think of my sermon?
His mentor replied,
I learned something today.
David was glowing with pride.
That's great. What did you learn?
His mentor smiled.
That there's a fine line between a long, drawn-out sermon and a hostage situation.
We've all been there. Oh, man. So before we say goodbye to the listeners and the viewers.
Yes, we're saying goodbye to David. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I also wanted to share that Kirk Chelson sent us a bunch of books, 2 by Willie Amos, who just passed recently. Wally Amos. Famous Amos Cookies was his brand. And
you know what I realized? You never had the original Famous Amos.
No, I only had those cheap ones in the bag.
Well, I had the original ones, and I was so disappointed when they got sold to whoever they got sold. They would come in a brown paper bag with just a little sticker that had the blue and white and said Wally Famous Amos chocolate chips. Me and my brother loved them. And then they got marketed or taken over by a corporation like Oreo or something.
Right.
And they were garbage. But if you ever had those original ones, they were incredible. in the 70s. My dad
I
used to
can
get 'em.
taste it just hearing you talk about. Listen to this: some seeds of wisdom and slices of life from this book, "Watermelon Magic" by Wally Amos.
Well, do you see what he calls himself? Not Wally Amos. He calls himself water. He calls himself Wally Melon.
Wally Melon. Oh yes, I see. Wally Melon. Oh, I see what you're saying. The Wally Melon lesson.
Magic.
He puts out a couple seeds of wisdom, slices of life, which are serendipity is another word for faith and can be found in all of life at all times as part of nature's law. Serendipity is the gift of finding valuable or agreeable things not actually sought for. Faith is stepping out on nothing and landing on something, said Cornel West.
Yes.
Living faith is a rock with roots, said P.K. Tomajan. And Wally Amos said, at every turn in the road during my journey, my faith has confirmed that life is a positive experience.
Yes, and you know what Yogi Berra said?
What's that?
When there's a fork in the road, take it.
Yes, we also got a book from a whole other character, Steve-O, from the show Jackass. His name's Steve-O Glover. And it says, a hard kick in the nuts, what I've learned from a lifetime of terrible decisions. I think that's because Darrell comes from a long line of people giving you a kick up the stairs, if you will. So, and all his friends know about that.
So are we going to sing people out?
Yeah, anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I think we're on to something here with our song. I think it sums everything up perfectly.
Is that how we sing?
Yes.
Na 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 na. I'm picking up good vibrations. God's giving me excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. God's giving me excitations.
Beep, beep, visit DarrellandEd.com.
Good vibrations. God's giving me excitations. We're picking up good vibrations. Woo-hoo-hoo! All right, we did it.
That was good. All right.
Have a